Clear Tai Chi Mastermind meeting for Friday, May 5th of 2023. And with this today is me, Richard Clear, your resident host. Matt Holker, the regional organizer for Maryville, Tennessee, outside of Knoxville.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Thank you. Art Don in Maryland. He's going to tell you where.
Hi, I'm in Greenville, Maryland. That is 10 to 12 miles east of Washington, D.C. Welcome, everyone.
Sheila Bell in Costa Rica.
Hey, everybody. It's Balance Ideal Tai Chi, and here in Tropical Paradise, Guanacaste, Costa Rica is the Northern Pacific region. I have classes in Playa del Coco and in Bavaria.
Welcome. Philip Chan in Columbus, Georgia.
Hello.
Mark Mashad in Central Michigan.
Hi, yeah, it's Midwest Michigan covering the Grand Rapids, Lansing area.
Welcome. Harry Legg in Verona, New Jersey, outside of New York City.
Thank you, Sifu. Great to be here. Yep, just about 15 miles away from Manhattan in Verona. And we also have another instructor, Paul Shansky, who's about a half hour from here in New Jersey in Fairlawn. Thank you. Good to be here.
And Ty Talbert in San Antonio, Texas areas.
As soon as you can figure out how to unmute yourself. There we go. No.
There we go. Hello, everyone. As he said, I'm in San Antonio, Texas. More precisely, I'm in Converse. The school is Warrior Tai Chi. Love to see you come out.
Welcome. All right. The topic today is for the Tai Chi Gathering 2023, and it is the 4 levels of Chi in the body, both individual and partner work. And Sheila is going to talk to us about all that and stimulate our minds and questions about all that. By the way, before we begin, if you have not made your arrangements yet to come to the Tai Chi, Clear Tai Chi family gathering, the first week, end of June, make your arrangements now. Go to Tai Chi Gathering, stop what you're doing, put this on pause, go to taichigathering.com and do that. By the way, if you missed the one that's coming up for 2023, we are doing it again next year and the year after and the year after. And taichigathering.com will always be updated. Usually in the summer, you won't be able to find it. So in other words, June is when we have the event. So there's June, July, August, but then by September or so, then it should be where you could sign up for the next year's gathering. And so taichigathering.com, it's a lot of fun. It's great food. I know because I picked out the food for the banquet myself. It's lots of push hands and great, entertaining and interesting and stimulating teachers teaching different aspects of the art so that you can get some insight into that. And you need to be there. So it's taichigathering.com. And the topic that Sheila is going to teach at this year's gathering is the 4 levels of Chi in the body and how to access them, feel them, and how to work with a partner on them.
Take it away, Sheila.
Take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so basically we're starting out today. Everybody on the call is, familiar with Chi, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the whole topic of what is Chi and whether it's real or whatever. If we have listeners that are on the fence a little bit, hopefully they'll have an open mind about it. But basically, if Chi's defined as energy, then, that's all around you in the universe in many different forms, all different kinds of vibrations. But basically, we're starting out, everybody on the call is used to working with that. If you're in the Clear Tai Chi system, probably you're feeling these things. So, what's the purpose of this discussion today? How do we cultivate it, and how do we learn how to use it purposefully, right? So, the direct and specific functions from Chi and benefits from Chi in the body. For the class in the Tai Chi Gathering in June, I'll be teaching everyone methods for themselves solo and also with partner to become more sensitive and adept to work with Chi in your body. And in case you're not familiar, what are the 4 levels that we use in our system? The exterior level, you may be familiar with these sensations, starts at the skin and a few inches above the skin. It's known as the Wei Qi field, or also known as defensive qi. And it's what most people feel at first. You know, it's what you may become aware of as being something kind of different. Nevertheless, you've probably also felt it, even if you've never done Tai Chi, okay? Just maybe not identified it with this name. For example, the energy ball that we use in Tai Chi, and also our diagnostic process for Fakong when you're starting out, is in that Wei Qi field, the defensive Qi. Going the next layer deeper, just below the skin, you may be familiar with this. It's the meridian field, and it's where acupuncturists work, right? You may also have felt this on your own body if you've ever found a spot that's a little tender. Just by rubbing on that, you're doing, you know, self-directed acupressure. That's the level that we're talking about when we refer to the meridian field. And it's kind of like a highway system, and you can move chi around your body through on that level. And it's obviously there's an entire field of Chinese medicine dealing with that level. Which, by the way, the points are actually where the meridians come kind of up to the surface. So the meridian field itself is a little more extensive than what we think about when we talk about the points, because the points are just where that field sort of rises to a point that's more accessible to being accessed with a needle or massaged. So deeper than the meridian layer, we found the yin qi field, which is also known as nutritive qi. Okay, and this has to do with things that flow. So anything related to the blood, the digestion, the air, all the organs, the way the organs work, and they produce different substances, which then flow to other parts of the body, and all this sort of, so things about metabolism and all the life functions that your body undergoes. And then the deepest layer is known as the marrow field, and this is found inside the bones. Say again?
Bone marrow, yeah.
Bone marrow, yes, bone marrow, exactly. Most notably in the femur, that's where you have the largest amount, but also throughout the entire skeleton. Everyone on this call practices the bone marrow washing, so we have to become familiar to be able to target that and do that practice correctly. So as with any system of classification, the purpose of these divisions is to be able to reference and to remember and to have some order, you know, about it in your mind. But we also find that these groupings can be very useful for different kinds of aspects of functions. So I've mentioned a few already, but the discussion today will be much richer, going beyond my own experiences to everyone on the call. So region organizers and Seafood Clear, if you would like, I would like to hear from you with respect to this topic. For example, if you find yourself working with one layer more than the others, if you kind of have a favorite, so to speak. If there have been any aspects in your work where you've been surprised by information from one of these layers, and whether they're health or martial applications that stand out to you. I could start if you like. I have a little story. I think it may have been the first time actually that I ever came to a workshop that we were going into the bone marrow washing practice together, and we actually had done it and we were finishing up, and then Seafood Clear asked if anybody had questions or observations about it. I had actually been feeling something that was in my mind unusual, different, just an interesting observation. So I said, well, this is what's happening with me. And I'll never forget this because that was like my first introduction to this thing about the different layers. When you transfer from the washing that goes through the trunk and then you're going down into the legs, I felt like a change in the velocity of the way the chi was moving inside the body. Whereas in the upper body, it's more like the same rhythm as breathing, like the way the air moves in and out of your lungs, that kind of speed. When I transferred down into the legs, everything slowed down. And so I asked about that. And you answered that it was because we were going from that superficial layer down into the bone marrow layer, that you could observe a change in the characteristics, in the velocity, in the, the way that energy is moving.
As far as noting differences in the basic energy feeling of the different layers, one I've noticed is in the bone marrow chi, it feels, and maybe because it's in a more constricted space, but it feels denser, almost more solid, so to speak. And I found, well, maybe related or not, but if I'm particularly focusing on the bone marrow chi and rooting, and send the bone marrow chi energy into the root downward, that it helps solidify the root, so to speak. It helps make the root that much stronger. So that's just one example I found of a different aspect of one of the layers.
Good, thank you, Art.
Sheila,
Anyone else ever?
Oh, I'm sorry, to what you and Art had just mentioned, I haven't explored it that deeply, but I definitely have noticed that martially, when you do some of the bone marrow exercises, if I start striking a bag, or if I start pushing or contact flow with the bone marrow, it just feels like you're hitting somebody with a lead pipe, as opposed to just a loose arm or a loose body. So there, I guess martially, does this transfer over a lot?
Yeah, each of the levels has things that they do. I would say the Wei Chi quite a bit more, and the bone marrow, obviously, for the effects that it's giving you in terms of the bone marrow washing and the iron body type that comes from it, the steel wrapped in cotton. But even having an activation and an enhancement to each of the levels, each of those layers, each of those levels of chi is going to translate into health and then strength of what you're talking about, where it's got that steel wrapped in cotton quality. And then also, like in the case of the bone marrow washing, where it makes your bones very pliable. So you're more resilient that way as well. And so it's a health thing, but it also then will translate to what your body's able to do and how it's able to do it for self-defense and other things.
I think too that there's a big factor of when you're getting like whole body connectedness, like if you're doing whole body breathing, or you're just trying to become more aware of all the different parts of your body. If you know about these 4 different layers, you can sort of check through all the different parts in layers like that, and you're going to get a lot more information and feel more connected. And so obviously that's great for health, but if that helps with your stance and your delivery in a martial respect, then obviously you'll be more efficient.
Thank you, guys.
I've got a few experiences.
By the way, that's Tim Kelly. He is the Boca Raton regional organizer for Clear Tai Chi.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I'm late.
Eric, what were you saying?
I have a few experiences that I can share with some of this. Obviously, we're in the Wei Chi field a whole bunch for our Fa Gong healing method. However, there was an interesting situation where we had one of our students sitting across the table from me at a restaurant, and I've got Sifu Clear sitting right next to me. And this student had a blockage. It was in their right shoulder, side of their body. It's been a little while, so the details on that are a little fuzzy. But I went into the Wei Chi field and couldn't fix it. Went into the meridian field and couldn't fix that blockage. And Sifu said, you have to go deeper. So he coached me from across the table into getting into the bone marrow of this person and then pushing that blockage out from the bone marrow. And then that energy could be brought together with the mind. And that was a pretty...
Remember if it was a push or a lead, normally you'd want to lead it out like you do. You set up a thing where you're going this way and it wants to come with, as opposed to pushing it out. You remember if it was a leading situation?
I remember you telling me to get underneath it and kind of push or bump it out so that, because it was deeper. That's what I remember at least. But that was definitely.
It may have been, sounds like it may have been an impact trauma, which is how that method would kind of work.
Yeah. Okay. So that was really neat. Now with pushing hands, there can be times when you reach into someone's bone marrow and there's a level of seizing that certainly does. And it works against certain other skill sets that people might want to try on you. I am not forever reaching into people's bone marrow, but there's time to do that. And then one of the things that you want to be able to do is how quickly can you get into someone's bone marrow when you put hands on them? And when you're first learning it, it can take a while. And it's always deeper than you think before you're really truly there. So that's what I tend to find with my own training and with my students. And then I have a question. So we've been talking, for a while, and Sheila's presenting it, the 4 levels of chi. But in some of our healing training, there was also the etheric field, which was 6 to 10 feet away from a person, where you
what most people would call the aura.
Yeah. So would that be considered a layer of chi as well, or is that
it's a layer? It's an energy field.
Yes.
And so if you take chi at its basic translation, which is energy, right? Then yeah.
Okay.
But there are other ones, and that's one of them. But it's on that. It tends to get, once you get, for my mind, for most of these layers, once you get off of the Wei Qi, and you start going further out, it's more like it's one thing, but it's sort of like if you poured oil and water and maybe a different quality of oil, and they separate out, and there's these layers, right? Well, as you're going through layers, there is a difference from one layer to the next. At the same time, there is this mix that's going on in there too. So it's not like it's one thing and then something very, very, very different, and then something very, very different. It's more like just grade of depth.
Okay.
And then different kinds of information will hang out at the different layers, just because it's more easily in that space, for lack of a better way to put it. Wei Qi field close like that, if you're trying to feel somebody's emotional, mental state, it's not as much going to do that, versus the aura contains that information pretty readily.
Yes.
And so it doesn't mean you couldn't get something in the other layer that was really mostly hanging out in a different layer. But if you're really trying to pick up on a certain kind of information, ideally you would know what layer that's mostly at, and you would just go to that, because it's going to be much more direct and much quicker and more of it normally.
Thank you. And we just got training in that last week at your advanced Fagung, so that was really nice to have. Thank you. Yeah.
Sifu, follow up on that question, in that I've been playing with expanding out the field of exactly what animals are on my property, especially at night, because I have had the ability to feel people, especially if they have negative feelings towards me. I was thinking I was expanding out my Wei Qi field. I guess I'm not.
Probably not your Wei Qi field. Almost certainly like your auric field, or one out past that.
Okay. Is there something past that field that I would be using?
So yeah, I mean, you start getting into like your spirit and that kind of a thing. That's going to be further out there.
Okay.
The auric field has, amongst other things, has a little more of an emotional, it's a more of an emotional layer, and your psyche, that's your immediate present to your psyche, versus if you have your spirit thing, that's another one kind of out there.
Okay.
So yeah. Some of those I don't have like the Chinese names for and all that kind of stuff. I just know it because it's like the aura is actually a common, most people, if you said aura, whether they know what it is or can feel one or see one or not, that is something that is common in our society. And so I actually know more about it because of that. I have had specific training on some of it, but not in depth particularly. I'm more focused on the ones that have to do with like these four and inside the body, in the way that a body worker would be interested in those things. Yeah, and I have been working more on the auric field. The one that has to do with the spirit, I don't think about it like the spirit layer so much of energy. And yet when you're doing that kind of work, especially with the teachers where I've been taught that kind of work, you do end up doing that. I just don't think of them as a layer when I'm actually working with it, but it is an aspect of a layer, like a type of a layer, type of a field distance for where it normally hangs out. Trying to think of good wording to explain, but I think that'll have to suffice for the moment.
Well, and it's interesting to see this crossover between the 4 layers of chi in the body and then what we're referring to in your practice has more to do with like the levels roadmap. Right? So how much crossover can you experience between those 2 things? Looking at these 4 different layers of chi from a physical or an energetic or a mental, et cetera, right? As you go up through the layers, the different levels of the roadmap.
Yeah.
So that's something. One of the things that got me interested in this topic.
And the bigger spirit part goes to what I tend to refer to as there is a local component, but there are aspects to it that I refer to as not local, non-local. It has to do with our spirit that's different than our body. That our spirit occupies our body, but there's more to it than just that, by a bit, by a lot.
But that is a few levels up the food chain from chi. Well,
it's all energy, right?
It's all energy, but the 4 levels of chi in the human body typically we're getting into in clear tai chi and like the 2nd stage of the training, and then Shen and spirit. That's a little higher up the food chain. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I will share. I don't know if this is in the neighborhood of kind of what you were looking at, but I find it. I find the whole subject of energy and energy manipulation, especially like for health and healing, I find that just fascinating. I admit that when I was younger, I really did not believe in that. It just did not make any sense to me at all, the way that it was explained. And only when I got a real education in it and a good explanation of it from See for Clear
and feeling it.
Sense. And feeling it and actually having the direct experience of being able to feel it and use it and getting the feedback from partners and all that. I mean, that's what woke me up to it. But so the Fogong and all the work we do in the Wei Chi field, I find that just over the top fascinating. I think that's just a crazy, awesome like exploration of human energy interactions and like what is possible with that. And I'll probably never get exhausted with that. But lately, I have also been starting to notice the like meridian systems in my body in a weird way, where this may have been happening to me my whole life and I just never paid attention. But like recently, I'll be doing something and I'll have it like an itch on my arm, and I'll scratch the itch on my arm and I'll feel a corresponding point like somewhere else on my body light up as I'm scratching it, like a completely unrelated, like a spot on the bottom of my foot or something. Like there's somewhere else on my body that when I touch here, I feel it here, and those connections that are inside of us like that, are not intuitive exactly, and they don't make a lot of sense, but they are there, and you really can feel it under the right circumstance, and that side of things and the meridian level of chi and those connections and how we can kind of self-manipulate that has started to open up to me a little more, thanks to the training that we've done and you know, some of the sensitivity I've developed now. But that's kind of my favorite new one to be playing with.
That's
Yeah,
the one where that's the one where when you see it in my stuff, even though you hadn't learned it yet, the personal reflexology method, which I got that, I developed that when I was studying with Tyrone in about 1985.
Okay.
So you're finally getting up to where I was in 1985.
Almost.
So, yeah.
we all have our steps in progress. They're not always linear, right? But when I first got, you know, enough unblocking, if I had enough clarity of movement within the meridians myself, I started feeling like what when as kids we would call heebie-jeebies, right? Because like the meridians were just all lighting up and just flowing up and down. It's like, you know, and so then of course that toned down after a bit, but I know the kind of thing you're talking about there, where if you're also becoming aware of something, maybe you didn't really have an itch. It was more like your body's like, hello, I'm here. And so then you go to that spot, and once you've rubbed or scratched, it's going to show you where the real issue is. This is connected to something else, which was actually the origin of what's going on in your body, right? So that's where you've gotten to a new level of your body will tell you. Like, you just have to know how to listen and how to, you know, what it means. Your body has many different ways of telling you what's going on, but you have to sensitize yourself. One of the reasons I wanted to bring this topic to the gathering as well is because I noticed on some of my clients for healing that I couldn't get that good of a read. Like, we're in the Wei Chi field. I couldn't get that good of a read. And because some of the first ones, I knew that they were practitioners of yoga, when subsequent people would come in and I would feel this kind of like just generalized smoothness all through the Wei Chi field. I was like, do you do a lot of yoga? Are you practicing yoga? And they'd be like, yeah, how'd you know? I was like, well, I mean, I'm just, yeah. So I figured out I have to go into these other layers. And well, like Harry's story, you have to go deeper and figure out what's going on the other layers, because perhaps they're doing some kind of practices where, you know, they've got some good, you know, the blockages are not as obvious. They're deeper, they're on different layers, right? And so having discovered that, I would play with this more and more often. And I was starting to get really amazed about the kind of information I could find on the different layers. And, you know, I came to realize that a lot of things in the Tai Chi system are showing me how to use these different layers, right? And how to develop them. So I just wanted to share that a little bit with everybody. So anybody have a favorite layer that they always go to? Or something new that's come up for them in an unexpected way?
Harry, I saw you take yourself off mute. Oh, Art.
Well,
I was just gonna. Oh, Harry, who's
well,
going?
she said favorite layer, and you know, besides bone marrow, which there's lots of reasons to love bone marrow. The Wei Chi field, just all the time, I've got students showing up, and they've got some issue, and to be able to feel or manipulate the energy that's off in the Wei Chi field for whatever condition they have going on is just incredibly beneficial. And even for myself, my own knee hurts or something, and you know, affecting that or whatnot. So that would be my answer.
Art, what were you saying?
Well, I was just going to say, I wouldn't say exactly I have a favorite field, but I like that there are these four fields and accessing each of them for the different benefits they can give working in different areas of the body. For example, you know, Harry said the Wei Chi field for diagnosing issues and the first step to sort of heal, you know, treating people, helping people. But I also like the Yin Chi field because it is so much of the body that it's I just find that if I go into the Ying Chi field and look around, that it sort of activates everything. It stimulates the internal organs, blood system, and muscles and things. And just again, being able to go into each of the layers has a lot of advantage, and I'm glad to be able to learn that and work with the layers.
Yeah, I'll never forget when we were all together at a workshop and Sifu was having us go inside, right? And all of a sudden we had to pause the class because there was a line for the bathroom.
Yes.
Like, well, we got some activation going. We'll just take a little break here.
Moved a few blockages for folks. Art.
Yeah, one thing I noticed in the past was the 4 levels. You know, if you have like the basic Wei Qi level pretty good, it's easier to get the next level down, and so on and so forth. And then when you get to the marrow level, there's a cyclical effect where you go back to the Wei Qi and it's way better.
Yeah.
So you get this kind of ramping up if you practice a certain way.
Yep. And that's that you know, knowledge of that phenomenon or whatever is kind of built into the system. If you do the Fogong or the level 1 Tai Chi or even the push hands, there's marrow washing in it, which is the beginning of kind of getting your mind into your own bone marrow and being able to distinguish that and being able to cause and produce the kinds of health effects that the bone marrow washing practice is known for. But there's also that, you know, all the other layers. If you're doing the Fogong especially, you're going to be working a lot with the Wei Qi field. If you're doing the Tai Chi program and the energy checks and those kinds of things, it's going to be in the Wei Qi field. And so you're really kind of starting, even in the internal push hands, it's a little more on the fascia and like body tensions and stuff at first, but the energy connections, you're going to be feeling for that. You're going to be feeling for whether your opponent has them on and how strong they are and where those kinds of gaps are. And it builds up to where, and you're doing the marrow washing in the very beginning, but it builds up to where you're using that. You're using the meridian systems and the fascia layers to control the other person. You're using their bone marrow. You're able to tie into their organ systems and like through the Ying Qi that way. And it really, you know, all the skill sets really just kind of build on each other in that way. And it normally starts with those two ends. It starts kind of with the outside layer and the inside layer, and then, you know, building it in networking them together from there. The marrow washing, by the way, just on its own, like if you weren't going to put hands on with anyone, and maybe you don't even want to do a Tai Chi form like every day, but you want some kind of internal health and the kind of stuff that comes along with that, man, the marrow washing is just an awesome, super healthy practice. It's a laying down meditation. It's like the least physically strenuous thing that we do, and it just has so many incredible benefits. And it's that mind over matter kind of stuff where you're thinking about things and you're kind of feeling things in your body in a certain way, and it produces this physical result that's undeniable. That you know, you're not exercising for it, you're not physically conditioning yourself for it, but you still get these results because you're doing this meditation. And so that alone, I think, is just an amazing aspect of the Clear Tai Chi system that you know, more people should be doing.
Yeah, bone marrow washing should be done every day for sure. Really good stuff. So during the gathering, I'll be showing everybody how to work these 4 different layers with exercises they can do on their own and also with a partner. So I hope that it will be useful and that you can make some really interesting discoveries. It's just kind of going to get some stuff organized in a hierarchy that you may know most of the exercises we're going to do already, but it should give you more information and deepen the idea of what those are good for and how they can be used.
One of the conversations I had with a guy online some years ago was about being able to sense and feel some of these things. And he came back and said, well, it's like you're going to be a human diagnostic machine, you know, and why do that kind of a thing. And he was an acupuncturist, and I'm kind of going, I hope you have the ability to diagnose through touch. Because the other thing is that, well, how many MRIs do you really want to have done, you know, with radiation and all the rest, and X-rays and everything else? And I'm always an advocate if somebody's got a health issue, go get that done, right? So it's not like I'm just relying on only the energy part. Although as you practice for these things on the health side, you start getting good enough at it that you can call it for what it is. At the same time, if somebody's got something where it's something, you know, that can easily be adjusted that way, that's fine. If it's something where it's a little more like you might have a broken bone, just go get the pictures and find out, or get that set, you know, by a doctor, a Western medical doctor, kind of a thing. Anyways, the diagnostic thing there is doable. The trick is that if you had to do it, and now I'm doing it, and it's, you know, 5 and 10 minutes have gone past, I've got some information and now I can use that. That's fine for the healing side. It's not very good martially. You run it, you build it, and everybody in our system, you build it so that it's instantly. So boom, as soon as I feel it, I've got the information. And now it becomes useful to you both rapidly and more intensively and more in depth on the healing side. It also becomes very usable to you on the martial, you know, for self-defense kind of stuff. If somebody's grabbing me and I know I can feel they've got some kind of an imbalance, and I target that inside of them because I can feel it, that's a lot bigger, more bang for what you did than just trying to hit them somewhere where they're really strong. And so it's very useful that way. And then it goes to all the high level stuff, the DMOC and all of that, where you're really able to have those more serious kinds of effects in case you needed that in a real situation.
It also very much goes to the ability to neutralize and wash out DMOCs and
protect yourself from
kinds
that.
of hits. Yeah, the sensitivity and the ability to manipulate the energy that way is crucial to being able to do that in any kind of time.
One of the things I remember was talking to you about just some of the experimentation I was doing with another friend of mine that does other modalities, and it was with tuning forks. And this is absolutely nothing against anyone doing tuning fork work or whatnot. There were 2 points here to make. One was it was really neat to be feeling the energy of the person as we do with our Fogong, and then having the tuning fork validate what we felt. So if I felt something in a spot and then put the tuning fork over it, the tuning fork would be like, dee, right over the spot that we felt. I'm like, whoa, that is too cool. So that was neat. But the other side of that is, and again, this is, you know, again, not against anyone doing that sort of work. It's very valuable. But you had said to me, well, that's great, but what if you need to do this and you don't have your tuning forks with you, or you're in a room or a building or something where that's inappropriate? You do want to be able to do this yourself with your own mind, your own hands and whatnot. So relying on an implement like that, you know, may not be the best thing to do ultimately. And that made sense to me. And yeah, I would rather be able to do things on my own and not have to rely on that. But it was kind of neat to get that validation.
I think the tools are good and they're cool, and they have things that they do and specifically do. And it helps people to have a tool, a mechanism by which to do things and all of that. One of the things that got me to a fairly high level in certain aspects of these arts earlier on in my career training of doing this is that I did take the attitude very, very early on of, I want to be able to do this. I had a, for lack of a better word, a battlefield mentality. I need to be able to do this when things are really bad and I don't have access to anything else, and it's just me and under bad circumstances and all that stuff. And so what does that involve? And so anytime I had a tool or a mechanism like that, it became, okay, how do I do this when I don't have the tool? And I was about that very, very early on in my training, like very keenly interested, like I'm probably not going to have it available right at that moment that I need it. So then what? And so I always would digress to that. You know, it was like, no, I need to be able to do this when I don't have those things. Oh, but this tool is so cool. I want to be able to use that. But first, make it, if possible, make it so that I can do this thing when all I got's me and my mind and body and two hands and that kind of a thing, because I'm probably going to need it when that's all I've got. As best I can.
Yeah, I find that to be true. If you're used to having a tool like that, whether it's, I mean, in my case, I like to use the oils, but a lot of people use stones. You have the tuning forks. There's all kinds of sound bath, gongs, the Tibetan bowls, all kinds of great stuff. But if you can internalize that frequency, then you're able to use it, from an organic, just me point of view. But then what I like to do with that, if I'm doing healing, obviously this is not for Marshall, but if I'm doing a healing session with someone, then I can send the oil home with them so that they can sort of extend the benefits of the healing session by having that on hand, because they haven't learned how to internalize it yet, right?
Yeah, and an example I would use is that if you had there's different screens, even your phone can have programs for it where you can pick up like, the heat signature? It's not infrared when you're doing the heat.
Yes, it's infrared.
Oh, it is infrared. Infrared where you're seeing the different heat layers and that kind of a thing. And there's different kinds of screens where you can pick up different stuff. Well, ideally, I want to be able to pick that up without having to use a device, only because maybe I don't have the device, or at the moment when something is going on that would show up in a field like that, I'm not realizing that I need that and using the device. And so I want to be able to pick up on it with just my body and my mind, because it could be that they're getting super but they're not showing that. And it's not like I'm going to go, hey, could you hold still for a minute? Oh, good Lord, you're heating up over there. But I'd want to be able to pick it up with my mind and go, oh, this person's temperature, they're something that's visual there is, expanding out there. What's going on here? So I can at least be aware of it without having to use the device because it's not like I walk around everywhere going, okay, what's going on over there? But I want to be able to take my mind and do it. Okay, oh, there's a problem, or oh, you have a problem, or whatever it might be.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I love what you said, Harry, about using it as a validation device, that it helped to validate what you were feeling and really internalize that, like, yeah, I did feel that, it was a thing, and there's physical proof of it that's independent of just my thoughts or mind or whatever. I love that. And I think that's a process of kind of awakening to the reality of this that almost everyone has to go through, when they start doing this kind of energy work. Is there's some level of testing and validation that is required at first to kind of open you up to the experience of it, where you're just able to kind of operate that way without questioning it. But and there's a lot of that testing and validation that's built into the learning style for the Fogong and the push hands and the other kinds of things that we get up to, with this energy work, which is why, for those of you who may be listening at home who don't have the direct experience of this, that's why you're hearing everyone on the call speak with such confidence about what they're experiencing and feeling, because we've all been through that process in a whole bunch of different ways. And two of my favorites to talk about are when I was first doing the healing work, and not, I was sensing stuff, but not quite so sure. Am I really feeling that? Or is this all in my head, or what's going on here? And when I was able to feel qualities of energy on people, and determine that, this to me feels like kind of warm and dry, and there's like a windiness in it, or other things, but where I was able to come up with descriptors, and then have someone else who who I had not compared notes with in advance come over and scan the same person the same way, and they felt the same things. They came up with the same descriptors as me, like independently. That was a moment of like, wow, there's really something to this. There's you know, anybody who's trained to do this and who's doing it is feeling the same things the same way. That to me, that was a level of validation and verification that I kind of needed to really go forward with it. The other thing I love that we've done more on the Marshall side of things that that is a fun game to play is that we'll take the quality of our energies and put them into hits. And so we can have like a heavy energy in a hit, or a kind of a floating energy in a hit, or a kind of an electrical energy in a hit. And we can put different kinds of flavors and expressions and energy patterns into our hits. And we train it to leave some of that energy in the other person. Well, or
to be able to remove it.
Or to be able to remove it.
For the healing side.
And that's actually what I was going to say, is that one of the more fun games that that I've played on this in this neighborhood is that one person will choose an energy and put that hit into another person, and then the person who's received the hit has to move it and blow it out and expel that energy from their body. And then where it really gets fun is if you blow it onto a third person's hand, and where you're really landing the energy on their hand. Not only can they feel it, but if they're sensitive enough, most of the time they can tell you what the quality of the hit was to begin with. If it was heavy, they'll feel, if it was like a heavy energy, they'll feel their fingers kind of get heavy. If it was like an electrical energy, they'll feel like a static buzz on their hand, and they can actually feel the quality of the first person's hit, even though it never touched them. They just got the energy of it purely from the person who received the hit. And by playing that game and really talking about it with each other and going like, yeah, my hand felt heavy, and the first person says, yes, I was trying to do a heavy hit. That's the intention that I had. And you can confirm those things. It makes it abundantly clear that this energy stuff is very real. It just is. And I know that there is that kind of process of validation and verification that everybody needs. But start that journey if you're curious about it. Start picking up the training and start proving it to yourself, because there's a lot there to be discovered, and it's all very, very fascinating stuff.
I'm guessing if you're watching or listening to these podcasts, and this one in particular, that you're probably open-minded enough if you've listened this far. But there are so many people, unfortunately, when we talk about these things, they think, oh, woo-woo stuff, you're cuckoo, yeah, right, whatever. And if you just open your mind to getting yourself in a situation where you can experience it firsthand, you will see. But if you never do that,
Yeah,
that's right, feel the energy. But if you never do that, if you have that closed mind, well, you're probably not listening right now anyway. But, or maybe you're listening and you're down with it, but you've got some Tai Chi friends who are just on the pugilistic side and blah, 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 and they don't want to hear anything about this, and they're all about Lee physicality. Well, maybe you can get the experience and share it with them at some point. Who knows, but if you just just tune into what we're saying at that point there, Matt, we can sound really crazy to some, admittedly, but it's real. If you had asked me, 10, 12, 15 years ago about some of this stuff, whatever, I'd have maybe thought the same. But
I do get asked by people, what kind of mindset should I have for this? And I'm like, open-minded and very skeptical.
Yeah.
And it's an odd thing these days because most people associate skeptical with closed-minded naysaying, and it's a closed-minded naysayer, and that is not the same thing as an actual skeptic. An actual skeptic is somebody that's going, show me.
Yes.
Let me see some evidence to that. Let me feel that. Let me see some validation of that somehow. That's different. And I'm not just going to be like, oh, cool, whatever. This thing. But it's also not no, because that is really somebody that's just made up their mind already. There's no skeptic there. They're a non-believer. They're a naysayer. is the way to say it. The answer is no, not is that possible, or could that be possible, or how can that be possible? And if it is possible, what can I feel, or what can I see, and how are you validating that from, those are good questions, and ones that ideally you would have for almost everything. And then once you get past a certain basic level of it, then it becomes, well, what else is possible, and how is it possible, and how can I validate that? And if I can't, then maybe it's not a thing, or what I felt might not be what I thought I felt. Because I'm feeling something doesn't mean it's what somebody said it was. It could be something else. And how do I test that out and see and really hone in on that? And as much scientific method reasonably as you can, that I'm all about that. Like, that's been my approach to it the whole time. And I really appreciate that approach. If it's a naysayer, there's no point, like you said, why are you still here? If you're just going, yeah, unless you've got something that took you that really were experiences and understandings that give you a basis of knowledge, where you're just going, yep, I'm open to all that because I've already experienced and can see and feel. Some people have that naturally, some people train for it, some people have some of both. That's okay. But if it's just, oh yeah, and they've got nothing and they can't feel anything and they're not really aware of anything, but just, yep, pour it down my throat, because I'm just going to believe it no matter what. Those people are a suspect to me.
Yeah.
All right. Yep, Phil.
So I would like to underline what Harry was saying about the tuning forks. So one of the things is that to have the subjective experience of these things is really, really cool. I mean, and ultimately so much comes down to that. But to have physical instruments that measure things is very valuable.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of, for scientists or people that are unexperienced, they will believe in a physical instrument, measuring instrument, more than your report. So it's a very useful tool. It's a very useful tool for marketing and also for teaching.
Yes.
I completely agree, and I will also say that there is among the like the kind of confirmed naysayers, the chi deniers is what I've taken to calling them. One of the fascinating things that happens there is that they define chi as a magical, mystical energy, and then anything that you do to scientifically prove your claims about chi, they're going, well, that's not magical, mystical energy. That's this kind of energy, but it's not chi. So they predefined it as something that doesn't exist, and then anything that you do to prove that it exists, they say, well, no, that's something else. That's something we understand. It's not that magic chi stuff. So it's not chi. And
at that point, my statement on that is, okay, whatever that is that you're talking about is not what I mean when I say the word chi. So I think you're right. I think this magical, mystical thing that you're defining somehow that I can't even wrap my head around, that probably doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, we have to remember that the body of training around chi development, and especially like in Tai Chi, it came at a time when we didn't have like modern chemistry or chemical analysis. We didn't have germ theory. Like, there was a lot of things that we didn't know, but they made a lot of really accurate observations that we now are starting to catch up to and prove scientifically are the case. Like the fact that we have basically what they call the gut brain that is responsible largely for muscle memory, that exists right where the Tai Chi people said your lower dantian is, and that's responsible for muscle memory and the building of your body and the development of your physicality that way. The fact that we have this heart center there's a whole institute called the Heart Math Institute that all they do is monitor the energy fields around people's hearts and figure out what it means for their health and for their
and how to work with that.
And they can define what kinds of energies those are, like brain waves, that are coming out of our upper dantian in the Tai Chi terms, but out of your brain. We can monitor that. We can see it scientifically, but the fact that we can put a name on it that isn't chi, for some people, they go, well, see, chi is nonsense. Well, I look at it and I go, they made these incredible observations about the body and its energy fields and how all that works before they had any scientific means of verifying it, but they knew it was true. So what does that tell you? To me, it tells me that they were really onto something. And then there's people who just want to say, no, it's all garbage. But I just can't dismiss it that easily, especially because once you start working with it and you start talking to people and you start doing, getting your tuning forks out and running experiments, it is actually towards easy to verify that there is a reality to it. You have to be pretty closed off to.
When I define chi as anything that a physicist would say energy, like in the broadest sense, would say energy, which is radiation and genetics and food, what do you call the small particles? The nutrients and all this, and gravity and electricity and magnetism, anything they would say that's energy, which is pretty much everything.
They would say it is everything.
That's chi, right? And that as soon as you try to add any other word onto there for just the general term, I think you've taken it somewhere already that's not an accurate translation. Now, once you start saying what kind of chi, now you've specified in, whether that be, again, radiation or gravity or electricity or electromagnetism or whatever it is. Then as you begin to, and then if there's a type of chi that we haven't got a name for, then we're only calling it chi because we don't know, we haven't defined it in that way yet. Although what I found in the most of the literature, as such as it is, that most of the types of chi that somebody could figure out, they're defined somehow. It's not all just left hanging out there. And so as soon as they're if they're trying to get away from the energy, the broad concept, or when we're talking about a specific type of chi, then the definition is designed to make it sound like some mystical mumbo jumbo out there thing that you can't ever wrap your head around in a certain way, in any way, shape, or form. Then I'm going, that doesn't sound correct. It's not correct to Chinese medicine. It's not correct to the study of the Qigong and those kind of things. And so it's that what they call the straw man argument. You've called it all these things so you can say that doesn't exist. And I agree with you. That doesn't exist.
So I would like to say it's reassuring that other people have dealt with as many closed-minded naysayers as I have.
Yes.
Well, the part, if they're just saying, I don't believe that exists, I found that one's kind of easy to get past if it's really just that they just think it's not the case. Because there's too many examples that you can point out where you go, there's this thing, if we've got a freezer uranium here and we take the Geiger counter to it, or any number of, 500 million other things where you go, there's energy there, right? And then they go, well, of course, okay, well, that's what we're talking about. A lot of times, but that's not, I don't know who you talked to or what they said or what you read or listened to or whatever. But if you're talking to me, it's going to be a lot more, like the way I put it across here. But if they're going, no, it's this thing that I'll go, okay, you want to make it something that it's not, and then you want to say that thing that's not doesn't exist. You are correct about that. So who are you? So you can't be arguing with me because I just agreed with you. Who are you arguing with? And what
That happened to me recently. I took some students up to the farm to do some Tai Chi on the platform up in the rainforest with a volcano. It was all very beautiful. And we finished a set and I said, so you're probably aware of how your hands are feeling kind of heavy, like, we really built up the chi. So now we can use that a bit. And the one husband from one of my students the couple, they have been friends for a very long time. So I was glad that he had enough confidence to really say what he felt. And he was like, but that's not chi. That's just because I've got more blood in my hands right now. And I was like, yes, yes, it flows, right? And so it was fun because he's an engineer. It was fun to have him be honest about what he's feeling, not wanting to call it chi, and yet have that be the thing, right?
Well, for me,
I disagree.
somebody said that statement, maybe they hung for a while and so the blood just dropped down in there. And so is it that? If it's that, then I'm saying, yeah, you held this position for a while and now the blood has pooled there, or accumulate that some extra blood has accumulated there. But then if it's because they were doing stuff, the order of events as Chinese medicine lays it out is that your mind was doing this, that the chi in your body, the energy is following your mind, and that the blood follows that. That's why there's blood there. But I'm not confusing blood and chi, just like I didn't confuse chi in your mind or blood and your mind. There's an order of operations, and it goes by Chinese medicine standard practice. It goes like this.
Yeah, but those kinds of conversations are, everybody's got to start with the framework they've got and understand it in the way that they kind of best can right now. And as long as he's willing to, and students like him are willing to kind of continue that exploration in their journey, they'll figure it out. It is verifiable and it is testable, and curious people will find a way to verify and test and verify.
Test and go. It failed on all counts.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But why did it, if it's known to work and it's not working for you, where's the problem at, or where's the disconnect? What's missing? What's going on? Or what does everybody else have there that you don't?
I will try to keep the terminology to a minimum and the experience to a maximum so that everyone can feel, right? Because I think a lot of people get hung up on terminology, and that's not really what it's about. It's about, what is the effect of this? How can I feel it? And how do I use that? So hopefully people can come and feel that and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Share.
Well, and I want to also just say thank you to you for having this be your discussion topic and for bringing this up at the gathering, because I think honestly the fact that we deal with 4 levels of chi gives it some of that kind of credibility and validation, at least for me. When if you're one of the people who takes the approach of like chi is this one mystical force in the universe that's like life force and it's this magical kind of separate stuff, it becomes very easy to go off into like La La Land with that. But when you start honing in on like, no, chi is just energy. There's all sorts of different kinds of energy, and different kinds of energies interact with each other differently. And you start looking at it from that perspective, it allows you to be much more of that Western scientific kind of mindset about it, like what Sifu Clear is and prefers. And by acknowledging that, like, yeah, even in just the human body and just the kinds of ways that we're used to working with the energy of the human body, there's at least 4 different kinds of chi and layers of chi, and they do different things and they interact with each other in different ways. It starts to get you more in the mindset of like, the reality of it, that, it's all energy, and different kinds of energies have these different exchanges and different effects in the body.
And I guess the other thing I'd like to add is over time, scientists have developed more and more instruments to be able to measure more and more different things. So it's very, it would be very cool if at some point in time, well, maybe they have it and I just haven't heard about it, but to actually to measure yi.
To measure mind.
And to measure where yi goes on an energetic level, not only on a neural pathways layer, but also on an energy thing. And that's certainly very possible. It's not something that's well defined now, but over time we have just seen many, our ability to measure many things that we couldn't do 10 years ago is certainly happening.
Yeah. Well, neuroscience has got to be the one pushing the envelope on that for like measuring more mind intent and that kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. So wouldn't it be cool to be measured, to be able to measure Shen with an instrument?
Yeah, Spirit, for that, I don't know if there's devices that would measure. I'm sure there's some things. In fact, I'm certain there are some things. In fact, one of the things that people don't realize, because it's not commonly talked about here in the West, is that for a lot of this stuff to be a Qigong healer, to be like an actual Qigong healer in China, there are tests that you have to pass that involve physical stuff. And if you can't affect the physical stuff, then you don't pass. And one of them is like a room for like testing Shen, a room where you're locked in the room and you have to have an effect on whatever the device or the thing is outside the room. And if you don't, then you don't have it.
Huh.
Sifu?
Yeah.
Yeah. Today we've been talking about the 4 levels of Qi. Are there like levels of Li or E?
So if you ask me about a Li, right, and I was using muscularity, like tension, grabbing, or if I was using just skeletal structure, right? So it's 2 different aspects to Li anyways, and there's probably, I'm certain there's more than that. I'm not even thinking of it off the top of my head, but to categorize it that way, for sure. And then if you talked about E, I can't tell you that there's different kinds of E. There's a bunch of different things you can do with E that are very different from one another. It's like, you know, it's like if we talk about a human being being mobile physically, I could skip, I could walk slowly, I could walk briskly, I could jog, I could run, I can scrimmage, I could, you know, like you know, this kind of a thing, and they're all different things, right? In terms of what we're explaining. And so I'm sure that there's that kind of a thing. The other one is that focused mind intent, E, is one kind of a mind application, but there's a bunch of other mind applications. Visualization is its own thing, different from the rest, right? And so you've got visualization, you've got E in terms of doing something, you've got like mindfulness, where you're taking in everything, or observation. So you're not imagining it, you're looking at it, and you're not doing something with it, although that we know from physics that the act of observing actually makes changes, right? And so there's a lot, and so sure, there are different aspects. So just like if we were talking about Qi, is it the same base energy if we could somehow scoop up a handful of it at Wei Qi, as opposed to meridian level, as opposed to Yang Qi, as opposed to what's in the bone marrow? It may be the same substance, but it's acting differently because of the area where it's hanging out.
The Chinese also, it's
what it does.
It's kind of an odd way to put the question, because E is like one aspect of mind in the Chinese. So it's not. So it's not that there's multiple.
I think you meant E level.
Yeah, but it's not that there's multiple levels of E or multiple like kinds of E. It's that E is one kind of mind operation. So like the intention is different from your thoughts, which are actually, it's a different word. It's Su. And then that's different from your like heart mind, which is considered a mind, but it's like your emotional governing kind of mind. And so that's a different aspect of mind. And so they do get into different kinds of aspects of mind and mind operations. But
well, in the West, we would talk about intellectual versus emotional intelligence.
Right.
Right. This guy. So, yeah. Cool.
I was going to point out too that, I mean, again, depending on who you ask and what their background is, their terminology is going to be different. And we have things like brain waves, you know, or, you know, if you talk to a psychologist, you get a very different answer than if you spoke to a physicist, which should be a different answer than from a medical technician and this sort of thing. So the human being likes to categorize things, to be able to get like a structure that's easier to remember, that makes sense and how it relates to different things. But depending on what your focus is, that structure can be quite different. And yet it still is about the same thing. We're still talking about the mind, or we're still talking about the energy, or we're still talking about the physical form. But the physical form to a ballet instructor will be expressed in a different way than a physical therapist or a weightlifter, etc. So There's always going to be divisions, just because that's how we like to, it's the reductionist idea of putting things into neat little pigeonholes. So don't get too hung up on it.
I think he was trying to ask, are there different, what I took from his question, from your question there was, is there different aspects at that level? And there are a bunch of them. So, yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else today? Nope. Did we cover everything you had to cover? Yep.
I'm very happy with the discussion. I hope it was a good experience for everyone.
Very good, thank you.
I hope to see you at the gathering.
For everybody listening in or watching at home, come experience this for yourself. Sheila is going to be doing hands-on exercises and the solo exercises and partner drills to really give you a feel for these different kinds of energy in and around your body, and how to work with them and how to develop them on your own. And that's just one of the like dozen or so presentations that we've got for you at the gathering this year. So please join us if you can. If not, sign up and get more information for the next time we're doing it, because it's going to be an amazing event every single year. And so check it out, taichigathering.com, and sign up if you can make it, because there's going to be a lot of great stuff in store. Sheila's workshop is just one of the highlights.
If you want more information on these kind of topics, and whether you come to the gathering or not, and we hope to see you there. It's lots of fun, lots of great food, lots of great times, laughter, enjoyment, push hands, and
Especially great food, if we had mentioned.
interaction and exchanges. Especially great food. I made sure. But if you also want to see some more things about Clear Tai Chi, we recommend that you go to clearmartialarts.com. And there's a lot of information there and different videos that you can either purchase and watch online or get DVDs for and all that stuff. And so that's at clearmartialarts.com. We hope to see you, and thank you for watching or listening, or both.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.